Okay. So welcome. Welcome, however you are. However parts are feeling in this moment in time. Welcome it all. We can think of this welcoming as Rumi's guest house. We can think of it as unfolding a space, a yoga mat, or a field, a meadow. Oh, and just welcoming can be so soothing. Just letting go of needing to fix anything, change anything, in itself can be such a healing balm. Oh, thank God that this part can just be here as it is without me having to do anything. And sometimes we can take this very seriously. Our healing journey can be a real source of stress and anxiety for us in itself. Sometimes we need, you know how when we go on holiday and then we need a holiday from having just had the holiday. Sometimes we need healing from healing. Now that's a strange thing to say, to heal from the need to heal. Very strange thing to say. Don't know the exact figure for this, but something like 70,000 thoughts pass through our mind per day. Don't quote me on this. That's a lot of thinking. What's your guess? The majority of those thoughts, what's your guess? How much of those thoughts comes true? The stuff we worry about. One thing is true. I think it was Rick Hansen, the neuroscientist, who said the mind is like Teflon for positive and Velcro for negative. Let's say that again. Teflon for positive. For those of you who don't know what Teflon is, it's a surface on a frying pan that allows things to slide off, not to stick to. And Velcro is this sticky fabric. So the mind is sticky for negative, naturally sticky for negative, and not sticky for positive. So if we take that and we apply that to our 70,000 thoughts per day, we can sort of figure that probably the vast majority of those are catastrophizing that is not really based on any solid ground. Other than those are the feelings of our parts. And so we take them in a serious way, but from the perspective of self. So we have the ability to see and witness the thinking of our parts, but not to be so velcroed to it. So self helps us to regain that Velcro Teflon balance. And so when we have a part that wants us to heal, we need to question, why do we need healing from the vast majority of our thoughts, which are not based on solid facts? So then we take a break from healing. What we recognize is that it is the very function of the mind to be Velcro for these more negative thoughts. And so we make adjustments for it. We make concessions for it. In other words, we see them with more ease, more playfulness, less attachment. Or we heal from the need to heal. Healing can be an addiction. We can become very addicted to our healing journey. Because when will you be healed enough? Or is there such a place of when you might be healed enough? Now, when I pose these questions, there's no right or wrong answer to these questions. These are just questions. And there might be some parts that are a bit put off by the thought of these 70,000 thoughts, the majority of which are data. They might think, oh, well, I don't feel so valued when you say that. And for self, it's not a case of not valuing. It's a case of having the perspective and a very subtle discernment and adjustment to both welcome the thoughts, but not get overly attached to the thoughts of our parts. That's the key here. So it's not bypass. It's not trying to dismiss. It's a sort of rebalancing. So the scale, our natural inner scale, is towards negative. This is called a negativity bias. And we think it might be because it helps us to survive. If we're negative inclined, we're always watching out for dangers, therefore keeping ourselves safe. That's a fantastic mechanism that as human animals, we absolutely need. But in our modern world, where we have relatively few dangers, there's really no saber-toothed tigers chasing us anymore. The dangers are now the job interviews, being rejected by our partner, being fired from our job, not having enough money to be able to afford the life that you might want to lead. Those are the dangers now. And here's the thing, for the brain, they are just as real as the saber-toothed tiger chasing us. Yeah. So that was a lot of talking. I'm noticing a lot of talking. So let's scale that back and welcome. Let's notice the breath in the chest. Hmm. Notice the body, however it's sat, whatever position it's taking up. Sat in the chair, or maybe letting the body be soft and reclining back on the bed, on the floor. And simply attuning to the breath. Is there gratitude here for the breath? A sense of awe and wonder that in this moment you're able to listen to these words. Whatever you are doing, you're here. And that's a bit of a miracle in itself. The fact that you're here in this moment in time with your wonderful inner multiplicity, this rich inner world. With these 70,000 thoughts, all the sensations in your body, all the images that pass through your retina. Wow. Absolute miracle that we're here. And if you're suffering, if there's parts here that are very attached to thoughts that are causing a lot of suffering for you in this moment, it might be very difficult for you to tune into this sense of awe, this miracle, and this magic. And for that, we roll out the welcome mat. Welcome. I'm so glad you are here. And maybe there's some parts here that are not so glad. Maybe they're in so much pain that it would just be easier if these parts weren't here. I understand. Totally understand. And we've got another half an hour or so. Just see if in the next half an hour we can really attune to and be present with whatever's here. Open and open, more and more space for whatever is here, whatever is unfolding moment by moment. When you attune to some of this thinking from our parts here, you get a sense how they perpetually, unendingly flow one to the next. And we might find ourselves tuning into the thoughts, feelings, and sensations of our parts. And then we might find that we tune out to them. We go, oh, there's a sound of Laura's voice here. Or maybe sometimes you tune out and there's maybe some traffic noise or the internal world is just as rich, textured, and varied as the external world. One could say that the internal world is more so textured and varied because it doesn't follow the same laws. It has its own laws that defy the traditional laws of physics. This is what, for those of you who enjoy this topic, this is what's called the hard problem of consciousness. In neuroscience, we can measure behavior. We can find the neural network that correlates to any type of response. But what we can't measure is exactly how it feels from the first person point of view. How it feels for you, the unique you. This is what the hard problem of consciousness is. And only you can do you. Only you, no one else. You know, when we talk about statistics and patterns, they cannot account for the unique individual you. They can account for some traits. This is just how actually improbable all of this is, that each of us, there's 8 billion or so finite minds. And each of us, each of the 8 billion has what feels like infinite inner world that doesn't follow the sort of more traditional physical laws. It has its own unique flavor. So in psychotherapy, when we're talking about patterns, trends, or traits, those are very loose frameworks. When we approach an individual, unique, finite mind with its infinite parts, we need to approach it with fresh eyes. And this is why I think it was Carl Jung who said once, know all the techniques and tools in the world, but when you approach another soul, just be another soul. Now, isn't that beautiful? This is how self is. This is how self approaches parts with freshness. It doesn't go in there with its models, predictions, theories. It approaches each part with a fresh, open, playful, compassionate, loving way that meets each part exactly and uniquely. Does self do that? How does self know that? How can it be so good at meeting these infinite parts? Wow. But it does, and you know it. You know it does. You know self meets every part just exactly the way that part needs. You know it. You felt it. That part has felt it. Self is like the complete meal. All the vitamins, minerals, nutrients that our parts could ever need and wish for is in the self, within the self. And here's what's even more beautiful. Each part is already imbued with self energy. Ah, now how does that feel for parts knowing this? This is healing from healing. In self, imbued with self energy, we are already satiated, fulfilled, nourished, mothered, fathered. Just see if that's true for you, for your parts right now. That self already meets them precisely and exactly the way they need to be met. And by the way, there's no need to cue. It happens simultaneously all at once. Ah, can you sense that? It happens simultaneously all at once. For those of you who have experienced your own IFS therapy, and when the particle self is having a dialogue with a part, I want to tell you this. All the other parts are simultaneously being attended to. Yes, yes. This is the inner laws of physics. In the outer world, when you go to a shop and you want to buy a thing and there's a queue. So you wait in the queue until you are served. That's the laws of the outer realm, the physical realm. Not the same on the inside. There are no cues. There's no waiting list. There's no VIPs. Every part is a VIP. Every part is an honorable, sacred guest. Every part is attended to simultaneously. That is the truth of the inner world. And the nectar of self is permanently flowing, available at all time, should the parts see it and feel it. Accept it, accept it, accept it, receive it. So much of this is about the ability of our parts to receive that which is already present and here. That's right. You might have a part that says, well, how can it be when I'm hearing self talk to just one part? Does self only function through dialogue? In the outer world, there's something like up to 80, up to 90% of communication is non-verbal. Anywhere from 50 to 90%. Now, what that means is that at any moment in time, our bodies are communicating with other bodies and maybe multiple other bodies without the conscious awareness. Same happens in the inner world. Dialogue is one form of self interacting with parts, but self is always here. Even when we fall asleep and we're not aware of our parts, self is cradling parts, holding them, nourishing, nurturing, regenerating, revitalizing. So yes, this is the good news of the inner realm. There's no need to cue. We don't need to ration healing. The inner world, or I should say self, is not based on scarcity, poverty, and lack. Self is not concerned with politics. It's an infinite fountain. Was it not Rumi who said once that we walk around with empty buckets in the external world, forgetting that there's a fountain, infinite fountain within us? Ah, wow. Is that true for you? We walk around asking for scraps in the external world. And if we'll only turn around, Dick Course is making a U-turn. Ah, there's the meal we've been waiting for. There it is. Can you see it? Can you see the rich banquet set out for every part? Every kind of food you can think of. Now, I'm not trying to say that walking around with an empty bucket is necessarily bad or that there's something wrong with that. It's simply to recognize that whilst we're doing that, there is, I'm telling you right now, an infinite fountain within you that's flowing. It's fresh, it's plentiful, never ending. Now, I'm not saying that as a hope. I'm not saying that as a wish. I'm saying that as a certainty. This isn't, what I'm sharing isn't some blind faith, isn't something that, it's just the simple truth. And I suppose my hope is that you will see that this is the truth. That is the only thing that's, I suppose, is wishful and hopeful in me. Yes. Feast, feast. Drink from this well. From these infinite clear waters. And let your parts see their own beauty reflected in the water. The image that lands here for me is my younger self looking into a well, looking down and seeing the beautiful face shining back. Wow, the innocence, the beauty, the perfection. And they're playful. And I see these younger parts of myself, they're just playful. They just want to look at themselves in the water and admire their own beauty and dip the finger in the water and watch the ripples, the circles ripple out and out. The circles get larger. They want to send a little tiny boat on it. They want to skip some stones on the surface of the water. There's just a play here. Sometimes they want to drink the clear water. Sometimes they want to dive in and feel the coolness, comfortable coolness. Refreshingly. This is what's permanently here, always, always here. I imagine now, these parts of ourselves that are a little bit more hot-headed. Makes me think of the anger part from the film Inside Out, or the little flame from Frozen 2, the sort of the forest flame. And it just makes me think how lovely it feels for these hot-headed parts to dive into these waters, self waters. Not to put the fire out, that's not the aim. It's to cool, it's to ease, soothe, embalm, nourish. We're not here wanting to put the fire out. Fire is necessary. Necessary element. Agni in the solar plexus helps us to digest, get things moving, break stuff down, repurpose, upcycle. You don't want to change the fire, just to soothe it so that it doesn't burn us or other parts. That's all. For those of you who saw Frozen 2, one of my favorite moments is when Elsa is in the enchanted forest. Great film, full of archetypes. It's just psychotherapy in a film, surely. But Elsa's in this enchanted forest. You say, I have a daughter who's 9, so obviously I watch all these films. They're beautiful films. Thank you that I watch these films. But anyhow, Elsa's in the forest, and this spirit of the fire is burning the forest down, and there's a lot of fear. And then this ball of fire turns out to be just the sweetest little lizard. Oh, and it just nestles into Elsa's hand. And now this fire enjoys the coolness of Elsa's hand. It luxuriates. And when its little belly lands on Elsa's hand, there's a little puff of smoke or vapor. It's like, oh. Not sweet. Not sweet. This is how I feel with some of the hot-headed parts. We retain our ability to kindle our inner fire. When we awaken to self, there is still the ability to kindle fire. Fire is wanted, needed, welcomed. All that changes is that the fire stops causing suffering, pain. And we have the ability to be soothed by the coolness of self, by the nourishing touch of self. That's all that changes. And so then we see the beauty of our parts, the natural, inherent, helpful qualities. We become self-led. I can't get rid of the image of this sweet lizard on Elsa's hand. It's really just here now. I hope you've seen the film. I hope you know what I'm talking about. If not, I highly recommend Frozen 2. In fact, I recommend cartoons. Cartoons are really get the heart in a very different way than what adult films do. If you have a part that says, oh, I only watch adult films, I just can't deal with kids' films. And I recommend watching 2 kids' films a day. Playful, childlike innocence. Yes, that's all, folks, for this session. It feels like I could talk for hours, but but I won't. So thank you so much for joining me. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your week.